I know no adult life without AIDS. Like the long-term survivors you will come to know in the pages that follow, all of the gay men of my generation, infected or not, are long-term survivors of this disease. We were all affected by AIDS as we emerged into our adult lives, trying to avoid the end product of this pathogen, a termination to our existences in the prime of our lives. Yet like a subset of these men who became infected early in the epidemic and remained vibrant and healthy 30 years later, all of us, my generation, have survived the plague, battle-scarred but resilient and stronger individually and as a community. It has been said that Americans who served in World War II are the greatest generation. I say that my generation, the generation of gay men who came into their own in the 1970s and 1980s and were decimated by AIDS, are instead the bravest generation. I know it because I lived it. The story of AIDS is not a simple one. In recent years, it has been drilled into our heads that HIV/AIDS is a disease that affects all Americans. Epidemiological trends certainly suggest that the virus has no boundaries and that countless others who are not gay men have become infected. Despite the prevalence of HIV/AIDS in all segments of the population, the epidemic in the United States has always been and still is, and likely will continue to be, primarily a gay disease. Many, including activist Gabriel Rotello, have provided multifaceted explanations for why AIDS happened to gay men, and there is sufficient reason to believe that there are myriad biological, medical, behavioral, political, sexual, and social factors at play. But my point here is not why AIDS happened to us, but rather that AIDS did happen to us, a disease that now has affected up to 3 generations of gay men. Chapter 5, and then middle age. I hope I'd be old before I died. That's what I always wanted, to get older. Like Robbie Williams, like that song says, you know, that British singer. Anyway, that's what I always wanted. Now I'm 50. Those are the words of Johnny when asked about getting older as a gay man, and more significantly as an HIV-positive gay man who is a long-term survivor. And so it is for the men of the AIDS generation. In all likelihood, and based on the current state of HIV treatments, many, if not all of the men of the AIDS generation will be old before they die, perhaps living a normal life expectancy, which is approximately 79 for a 50-year-old man in the United States. The men of the AIDS generation are entering the autumn of their lives, as is the case for all those in middle age. However, for these men, the situation is a reversal of a cycle because they have already lived through the winter of their lives. Entering middle age is indeed a mixed blessing for many of the men of the AIDS generation. There is evidence of both happiness and awe, and of struggle and confusion. For many of the men, there is obvious negotiation between the good and the bad, the joy and the pain, and ultimately the making of meaning. These are the elements that are further described in this chapter, summarized in part by Kerry's thoughts, who said, I'm not complaining. I'm thrilled to be here. I have all my benefits paid for. I have a place. I have a 13-year-old younger lover, and my lovers have been negative. They've all remained negative because of safe sex. So I don't want to sound like a downer at all. I just wish the gay community were a little bit more inclusive of us and more respect for what we've been through. I feel we're like Vietnam vets. Chapter 6, Resilience. If Gone with the Wind has a central theme, I suppose it is the theme of survival. What quality is it that makes some people able to survive catastrophes and others, apparently just as brave and able and strong, go under? I've always been interested in this particular quality in people. We've all seen the same thing happen in the present Depression. It happens in every social upheaval, in wars, in panics, in revolutions. It happened all the way down history from the time of the barbarians sacked ancient Rome. And before that, I suppose, some people survive disasters, others do not. Margaret Mitchell, 1936. Never, never, never give up. How? 2012. Sharing strategies for resilience. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet Thomas, a remarkable young man in his 20s who is a student at NYU. An accomplished musician, he is also a gay man living with HIV. My immediate reaction was to take this man under my wing and to protect him. I introduced him to Richard, the musician you have come to know in this volume, with whom he formed an immediate bond. As I think about this young man, I am reminded of another ability of our generation that often goes untapped, that of acting as mentors to a new generation of young gay men who are also confronting this disease that continues to affect our population. Eddie perfectly understands this role and enacts it with great pride. This, however, remains an untapped opportunity for many of us, those of us who have confronted the disease for decades, working with those who are only beginning their journeys. I raise this because I believe that what we have learned over the years, and now how we have demonstrated our resilience as a generation of men, can only help to enhance the life of Thomas and all of these younger men who too are affected by the epidemic. Final thought. In January 2013, as has been the case since 2005, I led an annual pilgrimage to London with graduate students to teach a course on HIV prevention and counseling. London has always felt like a home since my first trip here as a very young man, and has been an inspirational environment for me. While I was in London, I received a text from my friend Kelly. The Oscar nominations had just been announced, and How to Survive a Plague had been nominated for Best Documentary. I read the text, smiled, realizing that our lives, the lives of the men of the AIDS generation, were finally receiving the honor and respect that they deserved. In 2012, the pop singer Kelly Clarkson exclaimed, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." We, the men of the AIDS generation, are strong. We are stronger having survived this plague. I stand in awe of the individual and collective resilience and triumphant spirits of these men, and I hope that this book effectively celebrates the story of the men of the AIDS generation, one of which is my own.